When a liberal TV host tried to ambush Jimin live on air, she had no idea that it would become the biggest mistake of her career. The host, known for her trick questions directed at conservative figures, believed she had the perfect trap set for Jimin. Her team had spent weeks preparing questions designed to embarrass him and attack his personal life. But she had no idea what was about to unfold. It was prime time on a major TV network with millions watching live. As the cameras began rolling, Jimin calmly sat in his chair while the host flashed that rehearsed smile, the kind media elites use when they think they're about to destroy someone's reputation. 3, 2, 1, she said, and the next events would not only shatter her career, but also show the world what defending real values looks like. It all began with what seemed like an innocent question. Jimin, you've built a more peaceful nation, transformed the music industry, and inspired millions. Would you say it's all been just luck? She said it with a perfectly practiced smile, the kind that made you wonder what was really behind it. But Jimin had seen this type of game before, starting off soft and then trying to strike with a hidden dagger. He leaned slightly forward with a confident yet amused expression. It's interesting that you asked that, Jimin responded in a firm and controlled voice. The press loves to talk about luck. It's their way of minimizing success, suggesting that hard work and sacrifice don't matter. But let me tell you something about luck. Luck doesn't reduce crime, it doesn't improve the economy, and it certainly doesn't restore hope to a country. The host's smile faltered. That wasn't the defensive answer she expected. But she pressed on, her smile tightening just a little. So, are you saying that everything you've achieved is solely due to your own effort? She asked. I'm saying, Jimin replied with increasing intensity, that success comes to those who work for it. Yes, I've been blessed, but I've also worked harder than most can imagine. I've spent sleepless nights, faced crises that seemed impossible, and made decisions others would have avoided. But there's something more important. I've never done it alone. The host's eyebrows raised slightly. There it was, the opportunity she thought she'd been waiting for. But she had no idea she was about to expose herself more than she would Jimin. Not only are you talking about hard work, Jimin continued with a knowing smile, but you're asking about the people behind me. Well, when you mention the people behind me, you might be thinking of my team, my advisors. But let me tell you who truly deserves the credit. My family, especially Gabriela. The host's face shifted slightly, like a predator who thought it had found a weakness. She thought she had found her angle. Oh, Gabriela, she said. You know, many people wonder about her role in all of this. Some say she's too private to be the wife of such an influential leader. Jimin's eyes narrowed slightly. The air in the studio grew tense. Private? No, dignified, he corrected her. There's a big difference, though. I understand why some in the media have a hard time understanding that concept. A nervous murmur rippled through the audience. The host shifted uncomfortably in her chair, clearly not expecting this response. But she pressed on. Now, I mean, we rarely hear her speak in public, unlike other wives of leaders who are very visible. Don't you think the people deserve to know more about the woman behind Jimin? Jimin, with pride and unshakable firmness, responded, the people know exactly what they need to know about Gabriela. She's brilliant, prepared, and chooses her moments to speak wisely, unlike some who feel the need to fill every silence with noise. The audience murmured in approval. The host's rehearsed smile faltered once again as she realized her usual tactics weren't working. Still, she pushed on, now with a more aggressive tone. Let's talk about those achievements. Some say that maybe her greatest achievement is simply being your wife. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jimin's expression hardened, and even the cameramen exchanged glances. What happened next would become one of the most talked about moments in television history. I'll be very clear about something, Jimin said, leaning forward slightly. Since you want to talk about achievements, let's talk facts. Gabriela is a psychologist. She's led educational and cultural initiatives that have changed lives. She's represented South Korea with more grace and dignity than many public figures the press idolizes. The host, feeling that she was losing control of the conversation, tried a new approach. But doesn't being married to someone like you open certain doors for her? Jimin let out a dry laugh devoid of humor. You know what's interesting about that question? It reflects exactly what's wrong with the way some people think. Success isn't about having doors open for you. It's about what you do once you're inside the room. Gabriela doesn't just walk through doors. She transforms every space she enters. The audience erupted in spontaneous applause. The host's face reddened slightly, realizing her narrative was crumbling. But in desperation, she tried one last push. Surely you'll admit that your position, your influence, your power, all of that affects how people perceive her. Jimin's response was immediate and sharp. Are you referring to how people like you see her? Let me tell you something about influence and power. They don't build character, they reveal it. And what Gabriela has shown with every challenge, every attack, every unjust criticism is exactly why I'm proud to have her by my side. She's too discreet to be the wife of such an influential leader. Jimin's eyes narrowed slightly and the air in the studio became thick with tension. Discreet, not unworthy, he replied calmly. There's a big difference, though I understand why some in the media might have trouble grasping that concept. A nervous murmur spread through the audience. The host shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly not expecting this answer, but she pressed on, now with a tone that seemed concerned, but it didn't fool anyone. What I mean is that we rarely hear her speak in public, unlike other wives of leaders who are very visible. Don't you think the people deserve to know more about the woman behind Jimin? The people, Jimin responded with pride and unshakable firmness, know exactly what they need to know about Gabriela. She's brilliant, prepared, and carefully chooses her moments to speak, unlike some who feel the need to fill every silence with noise. A murmur of approval echoed from the audience. The host's rehearsed smile faltered for a moment as she realized her usual tactics weren't working. But instead of backing down, she decided to press further. Let's talk about those achievements, she said, her tone becoming more aggressive. Because some say, well, they wonder if her greatest achievement is simply being Jimin's wife. The temperature in the room seemed to drop by 10 degrees. Jimin's expression hardened, and even the cameramen exchanged glances. What happened next would become one of the most talked about moments in television history. I'll be very clear about something, Jimin said, leaning slightly forward. Since you want to talk about achievements, let's talk facts. Gabriela is a psychologist. She's led educational and cultural initiatives that have changed lives. She has represented South Korea with more grace and dignity than many public figures the media idolizes. The host, sensing that she was losing control of the conversation, tried a new approach. Of course, Mr. Jimin, but don't you think that being married to you has opened certain doors for her? Jimin let out a dry laugh with no hint of humor. You know what's interesting about that question? It reflects exactly what's wrong with the way some people think. Success isn't about having doors open for you. It's about what you do once you're in the room. Gabriela doesn't just walk through doors, she transforms every space she enters. The audience erupted in spontaneous applause. The host's face turned slightly red as she realized her narrative was falling apart. But with a desperate tone, she tried one last push. Surely you'll admit that your position, your influence, your power, everything about you affects how people perceive her. Jimin's response was immediate and sharp. Are you referring to how people like you see her? Because let me tell you something about influence and power. They don't create character. They reveal it. And what Gabriela has shown through every challenge, every attack, every unjust criticism is exactly why I'm proud to have her by my side. At this point, the host's smile had completely disappeared, but she was about to make one final mistake. Her biggest mistake. Well, since you mentioned being by his side, the host said with increasingly bold tone, let's talk about that. His lifestyle, the constant attention, the pressure, the scrutiny. Don't you think it's difficult for someone who didn't ask for this kind of exposure? You know what's truly difficult, Jimin replied, his voice filled with controlled intensity. Watching the media twist every story to fit their narrative. Gabriela hasn't just adapted to this life. She's thrived in it, despite the constant attacks from those who claim to defend women's empowerment. The host leaned forward, thinking she had found a vulnerability, but Jimin continued. The pressure must be huge, the constant traveling, public appearances, expectations. Some would say it's almost like a golden cage. Jimin raised his eyebrows slightly. A golden cage? Interesting choice of words. Tell me something. Why is it that the media celebrates strong, independent women unless they're conservative? Then suddenly they must be trapped or caged. A murmur of agreement spread through the audience. The host's composure started to crack as she realized her manipulation attempt had failed once again. I'm just suggesting, the host tried to recover. Maybe this isn't the life she imagined for herself, being constantly in your shadow. My shadow? Jimin interrupted, his voice blending amusement with indignation. I think you're confusing shadows with spotlights. Gabriela doesn't walk in anyone's shadow. She shines with her own light. But of course, you wouldn't understand, would you? Because the type of journalism you practice isn't about the truth. It's about creating shadows where there are none. The studio fell into an unnatural silence. The host producer was speaking frantically into her earpiece, but it was too late. She had chosen her path and was about to cross a line that would make history on television, not in the way she expected. Her next question left everyone in shock. Mr. Jimin, she said, abandoning all pretense of professionalism. Let's be direct. You're a powerful, influential man with resources. You could be with any woman you want. Yet you stay with someone who, she paused for dramatic effect, who ages by your side. Have you ever thought about looking for something better? The silence that fell over the studio was deafening. Several audience members let out an audible gasp. Jimin remained completely still, his expression unreadable for a long moment. Something better? He repeated, his voice dangerously calm. Let me tell you something about true value, since that seems to be the only thing you understand. In business, yes, sometimes you look for a better deal, a newer model, a shinier option. But we're not talking about real estate or cars here. We're talking about my wife, my partner, the mother of my child. Jimin leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the host. Let me explain to you what true value is. True value is someone who stays by your side when the cameras are off. Someone who tells you the truth when everyone else only tells you what you want to hear. True value is loyalty, integrity, and character. Things, it seems, that aren't taught in journalism schools. The host's face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but Jimin hadn't finished. It's truly fascinating, Jimin continued, his voice gaining strength. You're here asking me if I've thought about finding something better, while you're demonstrating exactly why your audience is shrinking. You don't understand what true value means. You don't understand real relationships, and without a doubt, you don't understand what real respect is. The audience erupted into scattered applause, but the worst was yet to come for the host. Her attempt to recover only dug her own hole deeper. I didn't mean to insinuate, the host stammered. Jimin interrupted her with a sharp tone. Oh, but you did. You said exactly what you wanted to say. And that's the problem with the media today. They make these insinuations, ask these disguised questions, and then try to backtrack when someone confronts them. But let me explain something to you about real relationships. The host shifted uncomfortably in her chair, realizing she had no control over the situation. Jimin's voice now resonated, not just in the studio, but in every home watching the broadcast. Gabriela and I have built something that most people only dream of. A true partnership, a true alliance. Not the kind that appears in your gossip columns. Not the kind that you try to discredit with your malicious questions. We've faced challenges together, we've celebrated victories together, and we've built a life together. He paused, letting his words sink in. The studio was now completely silent, everyone hanging on his next sentence. And you're here suggesting that I should look for something better? Jimin's tone sharpened. Let me tell you what that really means. You're suggesting I should abandon loyalty for vanity, that I should trade substance for superficiality, that I should swap true love for a younger model. He leaned forward, his voice cutting through the tension. That's not just an insult to Gabriela. It's an insult to every woman watching this show. It's an insult to every person who believes in real relationships. The host producer frantically signaled for a commercial break, but Jimin was in full response, and everyone knew that interrupting him now would only make things worse. "Do you want to know why I'm still with Gabriela?" Jimin asked, his voice firm and clear. "Because she's irreplaceable, not just for her looks, though she's beautiful inside and out, but for who she is, her strength, her grace, her intelligence, her heart. These are things you don't trade for something better. These are things you value and cherish." The audience began nodding their heads, some even discreetly wiping away tears. But Jimin still wasn't finished. He was about to deliver the final blow that would make this interview a legendary moment. "And let me tell you something else," Jimin's voice now filled with authority, commanding the room. "The simple fact that you asked that question proves everything that's wrong with the way the media views relationships today. You think everything is disposable. Marriages, commitments, values, everything reduced to mere goods that can be traded in your sensationalist market." He gestured toward the cameras, the audience, and the entire stage. "You invite people onto programs like this, pretending you want meaningful conversations. But what you really want is controversy, drama, that viral moment. Well, congratulations, you've just gotten it." The host's fake smile had completely disappeared. Now she had the expression of someone who saw her career is crumbling in real time. "Mr. Jimin, I think you're misinterpreting," the host tried to interrupt. "I'm not misinterpreting exactly what you said," Jimin replied firmly. "And now let me tell you what everyone at home is thinking. They're thinking about their own relationships, their own marriages, the years they've spent building something real with someone they love. And they're outraged by your suggestion that all of that, every bit of that history, all that loyalty, all that love, should be discarded. Why? For something newer?" The audience erupted into applause, but Jimin raised his hand to silence them. He wasn't done yet. "You know what makes South Korea great?" Jimin asked, leaning slightly back, fully in control of the situation. "It's not just our success, it's our values, family, loyalty, commitment. The understanding that real relationships aren't about convenience or what looks good on magazine covers. It's about sticking together through the good times and the bad." He settled back into his chair with the absolute confidence of someone who had dominated the conversation. "So no, I've never thought about looking for something better, because there is nothing better than Gabriela. There's no upgrade when someone has been by your side through every battle, when she's helped you become a better person, when she's been your pillar through it all." The host, now desperately shuffling through her notes, tried to regain control of the interview, but it was too late. The power dynamic had shifted irrevocably. "And let me tell you something else," Jimin added, preparing for the final blow that would make television history. "The real story here isn't about me or Gabriela." He paused, his voice now carrying the tone of someone not just responding to an attack, but teaching a lesson. "It's about you, about what you represent in today's media." He pointed to the host notes. "You came here with your prepared questions, your little traps, thinking you were going to expose something. But all you've exposed is yourself. You've just shown everyone watching exactly what's wrong with today's media." The host producer frantically gestured for a commercial break, but she was frozen, unable to regain control of the situation. "You know," Jimin continued, "you thought you were going to humiliate me, suggesting that I might leave my wife for someone younger. Instead, you've humiliated yourself, proving you don't understand the slightest bit about real relationships, true commitment, or authentic journalism." The audience began shifting in their seats, many nodding in agreement, some even standing up. "Let me tell you what real journalism would look like," Jimin said, his voice intensifying. "It would focus on Gabriela's social work, her initiatives as First Lady, her impact on thousands of South Korean families. But of course, that wouldn't give you your viral moment, would it? It wouldn't fit your narrative." Jimin leaned forward, his voice growing more intense. "You know what really bothers people about the media? It's not just the bias, because that's obvious to everyone. It's the fact that they've abandoned real journalism in favor of cheap attacks and trap moments. They've swapped substance over sensationalism." The host tried to interrupt. "Mr. Jimin, we're just trying to ask the questions that our audience wants to know." Jimin cut her off firmly. You're trying to create a controversy where there is none. You're insinuating that a man in my position would naturally want to leave his wife for someone younger because that fits your superficial view of the world. Let me tell you something. Real men, true leaders, keep their commitments. They honor their vows. They value what true partnership means. The audience erupted into spontaneous applause, drowning out any attempt from the host to regain control. But Jimin wasn't done. And here's the truth about real partnerships, he continued with calm confidence. They grow stronger with time. Every challenge you face together, every victory you share, every storm you weather, it all builds something that your shallow wash of thinking will never understand. The host, desperate to salvage the situation, made one last attempt. Mr. Jimin, we just want to have an honest conversation. Jimin let out a brief, dry laugh. You want honesty? Let's be honest then. You came here hoping to humiliate me by suggesting that my marriage is just a matter of appearance or convenience. Instead, you've shown everyone watching exactly why people don't trust the media anymore. He gestured towards the audience and cameras. Look around you. Every person here knows exactly what you were trying to do. And every person watching from home knows it too. They see through these tactics. They understand what real relationships mean. The host's face turned an alarming shade of red. Her producer was frantically signaling for a commercial break, but Jimin raised his hand to stop them. Don't cut this, he said. There's something more that everyone needs to hear. The studio fell into complete silence. Even the cameramen leaned in, sensing they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered for years to come. The reason why your question about finding something better bothers people so much, Jimin's voice combined authority and genuine emotion, is not just because it's disrespectful to Gabriela. It's because it's disrespectful to every couple who has grown old together, to every relationship that has survived life's storms, to every marriage that is built on something deeper than what's seen on the covers of Hollywood magazines. He paused, looking directly at the camera. There are millions of people watching this right now, people who've been married for 20, 30, 40 years or more. They've built lives together, they've raised families together, and you sit here suggesting that all that history, all that loyalty, all that love, should be thrown away. For what? For a younger face? The host tried to speak, but her voice had lost all the confidence it once held. This isn't just about defending my marriage, Jimin continued without losing his pace. It's about defending every marriage that's based on real love, true commitment, and genuine values. Because that's what makes South Korea great. Not the superficial values you're trying to push, but the deep, lasting bonds that keep families and communities together. The audience exploded into sustained applause, with many people standing up. The host producer had given up trying to save the situation. He knew this moment would go down in TV history, but Jimin wasn't done yet. His final words would become the most quoted part of this already legendary interview. Let me leave you with a final thought, Jimin said, leaning slightly forward, his voice now filled with quiet authority. To every person watching this, to every man and woman who stood by their partner through thick and thin, who's chosen loyalty over convenience, who's built a real life with a true companion, you are the ones who make South Korea great. Not the media elites with their twisted values, not the circles of celebrities with their disposable relationships. He turned to the host, who now looked physically diminished in her seat. And to you, Jimin said calmly, I hope this teaches you something about real journalism, real relationships, and genuine respect. Because right now, South Korea isn't just watching me defend my wife. They're watching you expose everything that's wrong with the media today. The audience stood in ovation, the host producer finally succeeding in cutting to commercials. But the damage had already been done. Within hours, clips of the interview went viral. Social media erupted with support for Jimin's defense of marriage and family values. Even his critics had to admit this was a masterclass in how to turn a hostile interview around. If you like this story, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And remember, real relationships aren't about searching for something better. They're about standing firm together. Leave a comment and share your thoughts on this.